From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
Hi there, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast.
For 15 years now, we've been proudly helping breeders promote hundreds of thousands of pedigree livestock with our easy-to-use animal management-driven website software.
And let's not forget about Hired Hand Live, where over $1 million worth of livestock is sold online each year.
We're excited to bring you market trends, sales data, advice from your fellow breeders, and stories from the ranch.
Our software makes managing your website and your animals a breeze, so you can focus on what you love.
So let us handle your digital chores while you tune in to another episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. Welcome to this episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. Today we're visiting the beautiful pastures of 2020 Cattle Company in Halfway, Kentucky, home to a growing herd of registered Texas Longhorns and Wagyu cattle. Owned by Chase and Elizabeth Lunsford, this ranch is dedicated to preserving the rich legacy of these remarkable animals. I'm your host, Molly Clubb, and I'm excited to take you on another journey into the world of Texas Longhorns and the breeders who care for them. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me today, Chase.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Why don't you just start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and about 2020 Cattle Company?
Okay. So 2020 Cattle Company is myself, Chase Lunsford, and my wife, Elizabeth. We now have a little girl who was born in July named River. We're in southern Kentucky around the Bowling Green area. And, you know, Elizabeth and I are both cattle people. We met at the University of Kentucky College of Ag, and I'm a beef cow guy. She's a dairy girl, and we kind of settled on this area because she wanted to get closer to her family and her family's dairy, and we started back with Longhorns in 2020. So it kind of just was fitting that we named it 2020 Cattle Company. So that's kind of the short gist of it.
So how does a beef guy and a dairy girl end up with Longhorns and Wagyu beef?
Compromise, I guess. So I've always been fascinated by Longhorns. You know, my father it started as a hobby farm when I was a kid, and it's turned into a pretty big operation. And, you know, when it was more so my dad and myself going to the farm on the weekends, and it was a relaxing time for him, and what farms are for a lot of people. You know, I saw a newspaper article for some Longhorn steers in Cincinnati, and he ended up getting me a couple of steers for Christmas that year. I think I was 7 years old or something like that. And, you know, from then, pun intended, I was hooked. I enjoy the studying, the genetic aspect of it, you know, how different they are than regular cattle. So that was always something that Elizabeth, she saw the herd that I had at my dad's place and thought it was awesome. And that was
where you realize, oh shit, like we've been lied to this entire time, which like the movie was all right. Like the concept was more interesting than the movie itself. And there's a lot of sex in that movie, and I did see it with my mom, and I'm still recovering from that experience.
to hopefully support a family and pay some bills and not just be a hobby. So that was a great value-added industry for us to go down, and we kind of try to keep the Longhorn numbers smaller and focus on more elite and really grow our numbers with the Wagyu side of things.
So how much do you feel like your education's played into how you run your operation and how you've chosen to grow it?
That's a good question. I think that there are a lot of great things that we learned at our time at UK. Um, networking is probably one of the most important. Just the professors and the people and the programs. I worked at UK's Beef Research Center. Elizabeth worked at UK's Dairy Research Center. So, being able to see the feed conversion trials that we ran at the university, Elizabeth did all kinds of studies with the university and the dairy side of things. I think that's really helped us want to scale and grow at a more efficient rate. I like to say that experience gave us a little bit step ahead, but it's still very daunting. We kind of both looked at each other when we started on our own, like it's not as stressful when it's other people's cows or the university study. When it's your own, you kind of forget what you have to do to make it work, and that was a learning curve. Yeah, I think it was a great time for us to learn and have fun and be college kids and still have a goal when we were done with school to get out and really make a life of it. So
Let's go a little bit more in depth to when you were getting started. Tell me, let's talk about the Longhorns first. Tell me a little bit about just those first few that you got, why you got them, how you went about securing the purchases. Tell me those details.
yeah, so we secured our first piece of land June of 2020, and it's about 60 acres. And I just kind of felt like a kid at a candy store. I all those years that I didn't have cows, I still stayed up to date on pedigrees and what was hot and what was not and all that. So I felt like I kind of had a plan and was ready to attack. I still feel like I would have done it differently, like everybody says. But one of the biggest things that I wanted to do is just a little full circle moment for me. Daryl Dickinson spent a lot of time when I was a kid on the phone with me. I would call and pester him and negotiate on a cow when I had $20 in my pocket and hoping my dad would buy it. And he didn't have to spend that much time as a kid, and he taught me a lot. And I wanted to make sure the first cows that I bought when we were getting into it came from him. So I picked out 3 heifers, and I didn't barter them at all as an adult, which I probably should have a little bit. But one of the heifers that we picked out was a granddaughter of one of the first cows that we had, who was born in 1998. So when I saw her pedigree, I just knew that I had to have her just for a nostalgic, starting over standpoint. But from that point on, we bought probably 10 to 12 additional animals that, pedigrees seemed to work with what I was wanting. I kind of did it backwards. I put together some really nice cows and went a couple years without having a really good bull. So I still have most of the cows that I picked out. Some of them have gone elsewhere, and to you never know. I guess my biggest critic of myself, I'm a big pedigree snob, and a lot of times phenotype matters just as much as pedigree. So that was a lesson that I learned the hard way when we started, is I would put a lot into the pedigree and overlook some phenotypical traits.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that for maybe newer breeders who might not be there yet, or folks that don't have, a similar background in agriculture, a similar education in agriculture. Just talk to me a little bit about what you mean by those differences.
Yeah, so I would get hung up on, full sisters or flush mates or, half sisters, siblings, whatever. There's a cow that, was an embryo that is full sister to RC Annie Oakley. I love that cow. I still have her. But just because she's a full sister doesn't mean she will produce the way Annie Oakley did, doesn't mean she will turn out, with any of the same desirable traits that Annie Oakley has. So that was something that, the first bull that we bought was a 3/4 sibling to drag iron. And, you look at that and you're like, man, it should work really great. And there's just a lot of stuff that can't line up. So you kind of really have to study on the total package. Phenotype is, the actual visual way the animal looks and the data to back the pedigrees. I've kind of moved backwards a little bit to really relying on phenotype and the animal looking the way that I want to. And if the pedigree works, then that means it's a home run. And then if I kind of have to struggle to make the pedigree work, I probably won't pursue it as much as I would in the beginning.
So, who are a few females in your herd right now that you've added based on what you just explained versus their pedigree?
Yeah, I would say I've probably still stayed strong on pedigree. It's just a matter of like checking all the boxes. The cow that kind of does it all for me, her name's Horseshoe J Manage. She's phenotypically and has the pedigree of everything that I desire. So that's something that everybody says you wish you could have a herd full of one cow. That's my cow. Our bull, for instance, we own Jaguar checks with the Tallies and the Morris family, and he does a great job of putting together a really strong pedigree with also eye appeal, color, horn production. He checks a lot of boxes for me, so we've just been really cognizant to keep in mind of these cows visually have to do what we want to as well as have a pedigree that's desirable.
Do you feel like being involved with Longhorns when you were younger, through your dad's herd that you mentioned, do you feel like your eyes had to maybe retrain itself a little bit for kind of watching the different traits of importance mature with the way that the breed has changed over the years?
Yeah, I do. It's changed so fast. Back in that time, a 70-inch cow was a big deal. Even just since we started in 2020, it's changed really fast. I remember, when we were buying some cows, if they were, 50 to 55 inches at 2 years, it's pretty decent. Now I'm very hard on our heifers, and I really like as many of them to be over 60 inches at 2 as we can. And it's just the progression of the breed is kind of staggering when you think about it. But as breeders, if we're doing our job, the next generation should always be better if our cows are doing what we want them to do. You can see why things are going in the direction that they are, but I think it's really a testament to how much effort everybody is putting into pairing these cattle and making them the best they can be.
Well, let's talk a little bit about being a breeder in Kentucky. So I'm guessing, most folks think of Kentucky and think of the white picket fences with the horses running free. What's it like to, be running a Longhorn herd and a Wagyu beef operation there in your part of the state?
Yeah, I love Kentucky for cattle. It's the number one beef producing state on the east of the Mississippi, if I remember correctly. I think it's number 5 overall, somewhere in there. So there's a lot of 30 to 40 cow herds in Kentucky. Everywhere you go, you can kind of see cows. Grass is awesome, but you still kind of get funny looks with Longhorns. I chalk that as it's a novelty, and it makes me happy, and that's all that matters. The Wagyu side of things, it's coming on so strong commercially that it's getting more and more popular around here. And even Longhorns, we have neighbors that have Longhorns. We have people that come visit us. That Ken Morris with Chaos Cattle Company, I mentioned we own Jaguar together with the Tallies, and Ken made a comment the other day when he was over here visiting. He just said he couldn't believe how many Longhorns he saw in this area, and you kind of forget about that, I guess, but I can think of several places within a 30-minute drive that have cows and Longhorns specifically, and that's kind of cool. And it's a good area, and I hope it continues to grow. And I think, like everywhere else, we're struggling with urban sprawl, and Bowling Green is growing, and Nashville is encroaching, and every day it seems there's less and less grass around here for cows. So I guess that's my dream, is to have this area with all the grass in the world.
Well, you mentioned when you were talking about, how you got started, that the reason you picked where you're at is your wife wanted to be a little closer to her family. Is it a family affair in that way with where you're located? Do the grandparents come and help and enjoy the cattle as well?
So I would say the cows that Elizabeth and I do is just kind of our thing. She has a milk processing plant that she has done herself at her family's dairy. So Elizabeth is in charge of processing and distributing all of their fluid milk. That's really grown, and that's been a big deal. I think where her family has been involved with us and really helped us out. They kind of got us started with the Wagyus. We didn't have a mama cow herd, but we wanted to get going with that premium beef. So we AI'd about 30 of their lower end genetically for milk jerseys, and then we AI'd those jerseys to Wagyu bulls, and we got an F1 calf from that. So they started us with about 30 Wagyus, and we kind of hit the ground running and got our own mama cow herd, and we're still doing some of those Jersey Wagyu crosses and having a lot of success with that. So the beef on dairy movement has added a lot of value added for a dairy, and that's a way that her family and us could kind of work together. And the joke is her dad is as diehard with jerseys as we are with our cows, and to coexist is kind of funny sometimes, but we make it work.
Do you all work together and collaborate on some of the marketing efforts as well, or what's the main avenue for getting the word out about the beef that you have for sale?
Yeah, so we have a freezer at her family's dairy. They have a full restaurant, ice cream parlor, agritourism operation. So we've got a freezer that sits in their area with some literature about us and what we do. We also have a burger on their menu that is titled the 2020 Wagyu Burger. That has been pretty popular, and that really helps us have an avenue for all of our ground beef. Anybody that is into direct consumer beef knows that ground is probably one of the biggest problems that you have to deal with, just from the volume of how much that you have to find a home for. That's taken a lot of pressure off us. We can sell premium primal cuts like it's going out of style, but having the home for the ground was kind of always a concern. And we didn't know if they would be very popular at the restaurant, but they've proven to kind of move through enough to keep us at a good pace. We're trying to process 2 animals a month right now, hoping to keep growing. So it's been really good. So that's a way that we've really been gracious that they've been willing to work with us on that.
What advice would you give to, folks who are thinking of trying to get into that market and have an outlet for that, those types of beef sales in other parts of the country?
Yeah, any kind of farm produced beef is popular in my opinion. The Wagyu aspect of what we do is, I wouldn't say that it's overdone, but it's a little concerning on how much traction it's getting. And the same kind of discussions with certified Angus, you're seeing Wagyu pop up at Sam's or Costco that you don't know what percentage animal that is. So there's still a whole lot of conversation about that, but the best thing is networking. We've been very lucky to get with some local restaurants to us that have really helped us grow and have been so supportive of our product, and being able to be patient when we ask for it, and being able to grow with us when we're ready to. So I would say just networking and trying to find some resources. I am not the best self promoter. I would love to have some of the talents that some other people that I've seen in the Longhorn industry have of networking their product and advertising and social media. I think that could unlock a whole nother level of growth that we could have. But it's hard to. I don't even want to make an excuse. I guess it's just the fact of you get tired at the end of the day and say, wow, we're busy. And I think it's a good problem to be a little overwhelmed. But I would say it kind of goes back to just finding a market and running with it is my best advice.
Well, you mentioned networking, so let's flip gears and talk a little bit about the Longhorns again. How important do you think it is for networking within that industry as well? Obviously, we're not talking about beef anymore, just the industry in general and participating in sales and futurities and all of that.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing you can probably do. The people that we've met and that we continue to stay close with, group text or anything, they've just the people that you deal with cows on a daily basis turn into people that you can bounce ideas off of. And a lot of times, if you have something you're pretty proud of and you share it with a friend, it gets shared a couple more times. So I think that getting your cattle in front of people or getting people to your farmer ranch is a great tool. And is there's plenty of people that promote very well without a website. I'm glad we have a website, but I know I do a terrible job at updating it in pictures and data. But that's probably something that I would stress. I did a great job in the beginning, but as time went on, I just really wanted to focus on the cattle and make sure that what we have is something that we're really proud of to share with other people when we go to futurity or sale. So we've also kind of taken a couple big swings at selling some of our higher end animals early on, and that's pretty nerve wracking without having a name per se. But knock on wood, we've been very happy with the results and very happy with where those animals have ended up. And I think my thing that I don't struggle with is selling cattle. I love the thrill of an auction. I love moving cattle. I enjoy the buying and selling aspect of cattle for sure.
Do you feel like there's anything special that you did that helped those high-end consignments see success versus flop like some have in the past from breeders who, maybe folks didn't know about enough ahead of time?
I think that the animals that did well, they had great things going for them. One was, bred AI heifer sex to a very marketable bull, a cross that is, one was a catch it daughter that was bred to a 20 gauge heifer sex that had a great measurement. So that cross, everybody knows that's had a whole lot of success, and that heifer had a whole lot going for her. And I think that it was very easy to see that she would probably do just fine. I've had a couple losses as well that looking back, I probably would not have consigned or done it the way that I did. But I think what I kind of go back to is like everybody says it's got to hurt when you sell one, and when we sell one that we're happy with, it really hurts. And when we are unhappy, it's probably something that, we should have culled differently or not sold the way that we did. So the market should show the value in animal, and stuff happens, but you just got to roll with the punches, I guess.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Cantera Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at CanteraCattleCompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing CanteraCattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
Are you a new Longhorn breeder eager to educate yourself on market trends and sale prices? Stay in the loop with our text messages. Get the latest updates, events, and insider tips on all things Longhorns delivered straight to your phone.
Stay informed by texting website to 888-700-8131, then reply with Longhorns. That's website to 888-700-8131. Sign up today and take your breeding program to the next level.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real, and unsolicited advice and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink, we're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Now, you and your wife are considered fairly young for like the average age of Longhorn breeders. So talk to me a little bit about, like, was it intimidating those first few events that you went to, having to go introduce yourself and meet people and do all of the networking things? How did you kind of approach that, from being maybe in a little bit different demographic than the bulk of the breeders at the event?
Yeah, we were really lucky. We just paired with some great people that are still just awesome friends to this day. One of the first animals that we bought at public auction was from Ken Morris and their family, and we kind of joke that Ken is my Longhorn dad, and we still talk almost daily. And he's kind of taken me under his wing and been a good beating post when I'm upset, and talks me through things that I'm struggling with. If I didn't have people like Ken, then I probably would have really struggled. And Ken has opened the doors to so many other people that are in his group or have become friends. That has just been awesome. So one of the first other animals that we've purchased was from Ann Gravitt and Barrett G&G when he was there, and that was an awesome experience. Being somebody that was younger, Bear did a great job moving a lot of cattle, and that gave me a whole lot of hope that we could shake things up and be a mover of some high end cows. So those are probably the two places that really changed it for us. So there's people that are willing to help, and I think the most intimidating thing is talking and getting out there. But everybody loves these cows in the industry, so I think that's one thing I'll never struggle with, is talking about cows.
Well, the East Coast is kind of known for being, home to a lot of active Longhorn breeders, a few of who you just mentioned and have told stories about, have really helped to grow the markets out there. Tell me just a little bit about some of the regional events to you all that you participate in, that you'd recommend to others in your area who are thinking about getting into Longhorns.
Yeah, so this area is pretty exciting. We usually make it a checklist to at least hit the cherry blossom, the bluegrass sale and futurity, and then East Coast in the fall. I know Jacob Miles, who's in the Nashville area, is doing a futurity in Nashville this year. So Elizabeth and I usually try to run up to Michigan and Dan's Hill in Wisconsin. So that's kind of our little handful of East Coast stuff that we try to participate in. If I'm missing anything, I apologize. But it seems that from when the grass starts growing to when the grass stops growing, there's always something every weekend. It almost seems with cows. So my previous life, I traveled drag racing a lot, and it was the same kind of way. So it just felt like you always had something to do on a weekend, or always have a race to go to, or futurity, or whatever. So it's a lot of fun.
Will it continue to be a family affair traveling to all those for you all? Will you pack up your daughter and hit the road like normal?
River has been to the Millennium already, so I hope she loves cows. I mean, she's okay to do whatever she wants to, but we are going to try our best to take her as many places as we can. So she's been feeding with me all winter, and she seems to travel okay in the truck. So that is the plan. We've got a couple cows consigned to the Cherry Blossom this year, and she will be there with us, and hopefully have a full travel year with her.
Well, if I remember correctly from back in some of the days when I could attend the Cherry Blossom, sometimes they would have a heifer they would auction off and give to the youngest person in the room. I don't remember who always bought it and did that. It might have been Mr. Gravitt, but maybe she'll have some luck there.
Yeah, that would be good for sure. She could use some. So she's already got a couple picked out that I'm gonna make sure she runs with. So that'll be fun.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the future of your breeding program. What would you say that the next 5 years look like for you all?
I want to keep tightening the belt with Longhorns. They're so competitive and awesome, and things are moving so fast. I just want to make sure that we don't let the numbers consume us. I want to really try to stick to a herd size of around 25 to 30 cows, and be able to watch heifers very closely, and be able to offer really elite type cattle to people that are wanting to move their programs forward. I think that was probably something that was a little frustrating to me also starting is I would pick out something that was awesome, that would fit our program well, and then it was, absolutely not for sale, no price, no discussion, can't leave. And I want to make sure that everything that we produce, is able to be moved for the right buyer. So, and with the Wagyu, we're trying to move towards processing 5 animals a month. That's a lot of pressure to get our mama cow herd growing to that size. I'm wanting to run two separate herds of 60 cattle, so breed 120 cattle a year for that beef program, and be able to sell a truckload lot of calves after using the 60 for our beef. So that's my goal, and I've got it written down to try to stick to it. And there's a lot of moving pieces there on how to make all that work, but we're gonna try really hard to get there for sure.
So over the next few years, are there any bloodlines in particular that you're keeping an eye on that you're thinking of maybe integrating or adding to your herd that aren't currently being utilized?
We've got a little bull calf out of CR Apollo, who is a pretty cool bull. It's so hard to raise bulls, but I'm very hopeful of the bulls that we have now that I'm watching, to kind of be able to be a little bit more of a bull producer. So that would just give me a lot of joy for other people to be using an animal that we produced in an elite program. If it doesn't work, then that's no problem. But a lot of people are trying to move away from the tough catch it up three brothers. I'm wanting to kind of stick with that bloodline and just move them further back in a line breeding scenario. So everything that I have is tough catch it or up influenced, and it just keeps getting further and further, and we keep stacking females that are just to die for in between. So that's kind of what my plan is, and see where that goes. But I just don't think you can dispute what those 3 bulls have done for the growth of the herd.
Are there any other animals in your herd that have you excited that you're willing to talk to us about?
We've got some heifers from a bull bred by Ken Morris, whose name is KCCI Collateral. It looks like all of those heifers should be at or over 60 inches on their second birthday that I have here right now that are of age. So that's pretty exciting. I've got a couple more that are weaning age. We've got a cow from Jimmy Jones named Horseshoe J Bubblegum. She's probably one of the coolest twisty horn, tough enough checks daughters that you can put together. We've got a bull calf from her by Game Changer that is yellow colored just like him, and he's awesome. I'm really just trying to build along those families that I've identified as the perfect cow in my book, and just make sure that every bull that I breed has a little bit of percentage of those cows left in them. Those are probably the families that I'm most excited about for sure.
Do you have any funny Longhorn stories that you can share with us?
I would say the one that usually keeps getting brought up is Ken's daughter Kendall was in Fort Worth with us, and I think she was 17 and a half, about to turn 18, and she really wanted to go to Billy Bob's and see a concert there. So Elizabeth and I snuck her in there as our daughter, and at the time that was pretty unheard of, but I guess she could technically be our daughter. But that's always pretty funny is we're Kendall's parents for sure.
Are there any stories you can share with us? I know Elizabeth couldn't join us today, but anything she wouldn't get mad at that maybe you guys have had happen when you're working cattle, or maybe disagreements you had over working cattle, anything like that? I feel like the husband-wife teams are always good for a few stories like that.
Yeah, I think it's a daily occurrence. We primarily work really well together, but I don't know if she would agree with that. So, when cows can be silly sometimes, and I think some words that were used once were "I'm going to knock your teeth out." I don't know if it was me or her, but that usually is pretty funny. So we kind of joke around, and if something happens, one of us looks at each other and says, "I'm going to knock your teeth out." It can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, we usually kind of fist bump and say, "Man, we got it all done." So it's she's a lifesaver. she does all kinds of stuff that I would never ask of a wife to do with cows, and she does a great job.
What would you say that your biggest challenge has been just in being a livestock breeder, and how did you overcome it?
Our biggest challenge has been land acquisitions. Elizabeth and I have been really persistent that we want to try to do this ourselves, and we're not starting on a family ranch or a family piece of property, so we kind of had to start small and get the wheels rolling and on the bus, and as things started working, and our off farm jobs have been more successful, we could get bigger pieces of property, and we're on our third piece of property in 5 years, and we're finally getting to the point where we can build a house and have some roots down in this area. So that's been really hard. It's very discouraging at times when you want to grow and you just can't physically at the time. I'm not a very patient person, but all the stuff that I felt like was going to work out that didn't work out, I'm so happy it didn't, because where we are now, and we're so happy. So it's all coming together really well for us.
Are there any hard lessons you guys have learned, or advice that you would give other folks who are fighting the same battles with, just the availability of land around them?
I think the most cliche thing is just be uncomfortable and jump as soon as you can. I don't know, if I'm not an economist, or I don't know what the future holds, but I have a really hard time believing it's ever going to get cheaper again. I think that it's just kind of a necessary evil, and that's part of my plan to run 120 beef cows is I'm hoping to finish those calves in a barn. So that's kind of my compromise, is building a confinement barn to finish the animals and not have to not waste the grass, but not have to have the extra available space for finishing the animals. So I think you got to be open to not being have everything grazing, but it's a little bit harder in our scenario when we have two different breeds. You've got all these bulls to keep separate, you got all these cows to keep separate, you got heifers, A team, B team, whatever. By the time you're in it, you're like, man, we've got to have 12 different pastures during breeding season, and that's not a fun challenge. Whereas a conventional cattle or a one breed place, it can be pretty easy. I like the diversity that the two breeds gives us, but maybe my advice would be to keep it simple until you get it figured out, because there's times where this has been really hard on us for sure.
Is there anything special you all feel like you have done with running the two different breeds in terms of like fencing or equipment, or even your grazing or anything like that would be considered outside of the norm, but it's worked for you?
Yeah, so we have a facility that we're just getting started on, that is a community pens, but it has a Longhorn chute on one side and a polled cattle chute on the other side. So everything on the farm will be able to come into one area, but you can kind of just diverge on if they have horns or not on where they go from there. So we're still trying to keep a central working area that everything can use. Just keeping all these bulls separate is kind of a nightmare. I keep them in little 3 acre to 5 acre lots that we can keep a mature bull in with some younger bulls, or we don't mix any mature bulls. Obviously, once they're out with cows, they usually don't come back together. So I would say continuous panels or pipe fence is your friend. That's kind of what we're moving towards, especially with horn cattle. They just stick their horns in woven wire or hot wire and kind of ignore it. Just be smart and keep stuff separate. I think we've had a couple oopsies where a bull gets where it's not supposed to, and that's going to happen. So usually the biggest issues we have are with neighbor animals, neighbor bulls not obeying where they should be. So that's never fun, but it's also part of having a neighbor and part of having cows. There's plenty of things that you can do to make it easier. It's just usually they all cost a lot of money. So we're trying to get there.
So what advice, other than what you've already shared, which has been a lot and very helpful, what advice would you give to new Longhorn breeders specifically?
It's easier said than done, but I think one thing that haunts me a little bit, and it's fine because we've had some animals that have turned out really well. But one of our first auctions, I think it was our first auction, was the East Coast at Ann's place. We ended up buying 4 heifers from that sale at that auction. I think the total was $14,000 for what we purchased, and then the high selling lot that day was Houdini's Rosemary, who the Crafts own. I think they just partnered with some Texas guys on her. She ended up being a 110-inch cow. She sold for $20,000 that day. Can't imagine the revenue that she would have generated. And then the 4 cows that we purchased for a total of $14,000, haven't had the potential to do what that one cow has done. So I know $14,000 to $20,000, there's still a difference there, but me looking back, I was like, man, if I would have just bought that one cow for $20,000 rather than these 4 for 14, just think of where we could have been. So my advice would be to spend your money wisely and focus on quality rather than quantity of animals, if that's where you're wanting your Longhorn experience to end up in. So that's one thing that I continue to think about is how the money was spent to get our herd where we're at.
Is there any advice you haven't covered that you wish you would have received before starting? I know that's an interesting question because you started so young, with your family's herd, but maybe if you think about it in the context of, when you were out of college and having to do it all on your own.
I think artificial insemination is a huge tool. We waited a couple years to really start the ball rolling with that. We've done some IVF work, and you either love it or hate it. We're in a hating it mood right now because it's hard, but when it works, it's great. It's not that it's easy, but when things are less complicated, it's somewhat easy to be able to catch an animal in a natural heat. And then when you AI breed an animal in a natural heat, our success rate has been really great. And it's just so awesome to have a marketable heifer calf with heifer sex semen from a bull that's popular. That can really move your program forward faster than anything else, in my opinion.
With your backgrounds, do you all do your own AI work or do you source it out?
I am so lucky that Elizabeth's dad is a text message or a phone call away. They don't have bulls at the dairy, so they AI everything. So if I see a standing heat, he's on speed dial and he comes over and gives it a try.
Do you have an all-time favorite Longhorn cow or bull?
I would say my favorite cow is probably Horseshoe J Fancy Pants, just from the family aspect of what she's produced.
I had a feeling that might be your answer. When I was preparing for today's podcast, I couldn't help but notice the several Horseshoe J females on your cows page. So I wondered, do you have a favorite bull?
I would say no. I mean, they're all so different. I really focus on the cows. I know that a bull is important, but I have so many bulls that I like that just work with certain cows, whereas a cow, I just can't stop thinking about some cows, and I'm not the same way about bulls. I would say my favorite bull right now is our bull Jaguar because I'm looking out the window at him right now, and I like to look at him.
Tell me about some breeders or some herds that you just admire.
There's several. Mike Willinger is a great resource for Longhorn cattle. He's a great cattleman. He's done a great job at Hudson's, and he is worth the trip to check out. My Longhorn dad, Ken Morris, is awesome. He is a great cattleman. I love Jimmy Jones and Terry King and those guys. The rest of the Carolina cartel, Scott and Aaron, we've lost Scott, but they had a huge influence on what I'm working on and what I was doing. So my favorite cow that we own right now is Horseshoe J Manage, and Scott actually sold her at the Bluegrass, and we didn't buy her from Scott. We ended up getting her from the Torkelsons, but for some reason I just can't forget Scott's sale comments on that cow. It was something so short and simple like, this is the best cow I own. I hope one day you can own one like her too. And seeing her every day, I know exactly what he felt when he wrote those comments. So that's just kind of something that I think about a lot.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your website and a little bit more about marketing, even though we've touched on it. What's the favorite tool on the back end of your Hired Hand website that you enjoy using?
I really enjoy measurements, keeping track of all that. That's probably, the biggest data tool that I like to keep an eye on. I'm a nerd, and when we work all of our cows, I will go back and see what cow is growing what per month, and how many inches they're growing in that time frame, who's growing the fastest horn in that time frame. So that's just a great tool to be able to keep all your data like there right there, and be able to go back and look from years ago where cows came from. I would say that's my answer there.
So is it one of your pet peeves then if you go to a site that doesn't have measurements?
I'm going to be so relaxed on this because I know I've done such a bad job on our website. So, like I think you can kind of do things all kinds of ways. Like look how successful Jimmy and Terry have been with just word of mouth and getting people to their place, but that's taken a lifetime to do it. Hired hand and having a website can just speed you up so fast and getting in front of so many people. I was just the website updating fool when we started, and it seems like now that everything's kind of coming together, I really enjoy getting people out to our place and have been a little bit relaxed on updating everything. So yeah, I would say it's a pet peeve to not be able to see measurements, but I don't think I have any measurements listed that are relatively recent anyways. So I'm probably my own pet peeve, I guess.
What is your go-to social media for finding and promoting your Longhorns?
I would say Facebook. It's hard to beat just the mass outreach that Facebook has. It's just a huge tool.
Do you have a favorite or a most visited hired hand website besides your own?
Yeah, I would say there are several. But I would say my clear favorite would have to be Suzanne Torkelson at Bull Creek Ranch. I check that probably every day or every other day just because she's always changing something or always updating something, and I love her cows. So she has been a great one to have in our pocket, and I love talking to Suzanne, and is just has the most incredible cows that you can ever imagine in person. So that was an awesome trip for us to go down and see her.
How much time do you think you spend looking at Longhorn websites in a week?
My answer is probably less than what Elizabeth says, but I struggle if we're kind of caught up a little bit at work and I'm checking emails. I'll find myself switching back and forth. Yesterday, Elizabeth walked up to me at the computer and said, "What's that?" And I was looking at some bulls, and I said, "I'm just trying to figure out who to breed to." So I think I probably subconsciously do it more than I realized, but I'd say at least it seems like an hour a day. Like I just like looking at cows. So
Now, you told us about some events that you and Elizabeth attend together. Are there some that you watch online through Hired Hand Live?
yeah, we've purchased several animals online through Hired Hand Live, sight unseen, and usually if I can't get to an auction, I will be watching while I'm driving, which is probably unsafe. I will be watching wherever I am. So I like to keep track of what's going on and feel like I'm there. So last year was pretty hard on me. I River being born was the coolest thing in the world, but we didn't make it to hardly any cattle shows or sales. So I watched a lot online last year and just kind of silently felt like I was with all my friends. Definitely looking forward to being back out there, but Hired Hand Live has been a lifesaver on if you can't make it.
Have you and Elizabeth ever found yourselves bidding against each other or anything, or are you pretty good about communicating who's doing the bidding?
She's very she's very clear that the cows are my thing and she's just the support. So usually I have to ask for forgiveness that I've bought a cow. I would be shocked if Elizabeth would be buying a cow without me knowing about it, but there's always a chance. So no, that'd be funny.
Have you all participated in our monthly sales by listing an animal at all, or not yet?
We have not yet. I was actually looking at that a couple days ago. I have a heifer that I'd love to put on that sale, and I know that I can do it anytime, but usually I think it's the 15th of the month is when you need to have your stuff in for that sale, and usually I look at it at like the 17th or something, and so I'm like, oh, I'll do it next month, and I've forgotten about a couple months, so I'm gonna try to here soon.
Perfect. Well, I have a few rapid fire questions. Are you up for some of them?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What's your favorite food to snack on while you're driving around the pasture?
Probably beef jerky.
Does Elizabeth have one, or does she share that with you?
She loves candy, so any kind of candy would be my answer for her.
What is your favorite farm or ranch tool?
Probably tractor.
We'll do two different questions for this one. Give me one word first to describe your Longhorn herd.
Pretty.
What about your Wagyu herd?
Uniform.
Is Kentucky your dream ranch location, or is there somewhere else you all kind of aspire to be?
I would love to have a ranch on the Red River, the Brazos, the Colorado River, just any one of those really cool rivers in that part of the world.
I think you already answered this previously, but what's your ideal Longhorn herd size?
If we had all the grass in the world, I would love 250 to 500 to as many as I can. But for what we're wanting to do, 25 to 30 is where I want to be.
I think 500 might be a first for an answer, Chase.
I do like cows.
Do you all freeze or hot iron brand?
We freeze brand.
If you had one Longhorn lifeline on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, who would you call?
Ken.
I feel like we might need to get Ken a shirt that says Longhorn Dad now that you coined that phrase.
I agree.
Well, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like our listeners to know?
I don't think so. I would love it if anybody's in the area to drop by and see us. I think we have some cool stuff that we can share with and hope to move some programs in a different direction or forward or wherever you guys want to move. So I like talking about cows and I could do this all day. So I really appreciate you having me on here and giving me the opportunity.
Of course. And I hope some folks take you up on that. How far are you from how far are you from the Bowling Green sale?
So we are exactly an hour north of Nashville off of I-65. So we're about an hour and a half southwest of the Lexington sale. The Bowling Green sale would have been like 15 minutes if they were still having it here. But we're just north of I-40. So Ryan Culpepper uses us a lot to lay over some cows and we love talking about cows as well. So we're very convenient area in my opinion.
Well, thank you again so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. No problem.
Thanks for joining us on From the Pasture with Hired Hand. We hope you enjoyed this visit to 2020 Cattle Company and learned something new about the world of Texas Longhorns or Wagyu cattle. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. You can always explore more stories from the pasture by visiting our website or following us on social media. Until next time, remember to appreciate the pastures you roam and the traditions that make them special.